Welcome back to the Hard Hitting Wrestling Show, the HHW Show podcast presented by Clovercrest Media. I have a special guest, and yes, it is not only my mini me here, my son Sammy.
Hi, how's it going? How's it going?
It's going great. It's a best birthday gift for me, not only to see my son but my grandson as well. And we both, as a family, watched Money in the Bank. That's just completed. And once again, like I said, thank you all for joining me. Money in the Bank. We're going to start right away with our reaction and let us know with your comments below if you agreed, disagreed, or what's next for what's to come for SummerSlam. But we'll start off with the Money in the Bank. And yes, Hector not only won it called it about Drew McIntyre winning, but he also called the whole entire show. So congratulations to Hector. I know he's very ill right now, couldn't be on the show, but I hope that you feel better. And as far as Frank, next time, buddy. Still in last place, bud, but that's okay. All right, but let's talk about the reaction here on the Money in the Bank. And Drew McIntyre wins, but we knew that CM Punk eventually was going to interfere. Who'd you had originally for the Money in the Bank?
So, for the Money in the Bank, I really wanted Jey Uso to win.
I feel you. I had that same pick, and the reason why is because he always came close to always winning a certain title, and there's always an interference. If it wasn't for the bloodline, there was always something going on. But however, he was the runner up. He was about to get until Drew McIntyre handled his business.
You're right. And honestly, from what Drew McIntyre said, we already had a feeling that he was going to win it. But, Jey Uso has, so many, opportunities, after this. Because it's not just that. He's going to go on to something else. And, just we really saw Drew McIntyre getting it, and then plus his whole rivalry, with Priest and all that, it was bound to happen.
You're absolutely right. More to follow on this because we knew coming in here that I predicted if you tuned into the last episode that CM Punk was going to do something. And usually when someone is getting their ass kicked, especially on SmackDown, they always want to do a comeback. But I also wanted another person to come back, but we'll talk about that later on in the main event of the show. But let's move on to the actual uh, World Heavyweight Championship. Damian Priest wins, and you can see that he is pinning Drew McIntyre because he converted this into a triple threat match. Now, I know I was texting Hector and I was texting Frank. Somehow, somewhere, there was a botch in there because I did not see Damian Priest move his shoulders and nothing. The referee goes 1, 2, and I got a feeling it was bad timing. The whole crowd jumped. Even Seth Rollins looked at the referees like, "What are you doing? Like, what's going on?" And then all of a sudden, we heard Drew McIntyre's music.
Right. See, here's a mess up on that one because it can go two ways, right? One, you're right, it is a botch. If anything, the timing of it was completely off, right? But also, you know, I was distracted from your grandson. But the way I kind of looked at it was that Drew McIntyre's song kind of took the refs' attention off in a way, and then from there, we already know what happened. But within that time right there, maybe it was planned for Drew McIntyre to come, or you're right, maybe Seth Rollins should have been, the champion, and then it was just, Seth.
Damian Priest could have walked away. And then, of course, you would have had a one-on-one with Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins. And then CM Punk steps in. But it is what it is. It already happened. But the thing is that now CM Punk, now he pretty much stole the show. It wasn't really about the belt anymore. And that's what pissed off Seth freaking Rollins. Okay? He was yelling at him. and everything else, and which is expected. But the thing is, I got a feeling there's going to be more to the story because now you only listen. Seth Rollins still is upset that CM Punk is back in the WWE, but let's face it. I just got a gut feeling this might turn around to a triple threat match between Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk for WrestleMania. What do you think?
See, I was immediately thinking that as you were talking to me, and it makes so much sense because it's like a little triangle. See, Seth doesn't like CM Punk for, CM Punk's career decisions. And then he comes back after, everything that, he said. But the whole rivalry with Drew and CM Punk is just constantly just going back and forth. And CM Punk, there's no telling what his intentions were because you're right. He may not even be after the title. Just the fact that it's just pure superstar beef. And, CM Punk does things for a reason. He doesn't do anything blindly. This man always has a plan, you know? I mean, seeing him growing up, you know what I mean? Like he was wild on the mic, and most of the time he was off script around that time. But still,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And listen, with all that drama going on, let's go to the other side of Damian Priest. There's some friction between him and Finn Balor.
mm, see, see that one, without mommy, right? Things are just so chaotic. It seems like the same thing that they're going through is like what the bloodline went. The bloodline's always, having conflict with it, and I think that's exactly what the Judgment Day is facing. Because now that Priest is champion, he's want to be a bigger example. He doesn't want to. He wants to win fairly because in a way he wants to prove everyone that he can do it without any help from the Judgment Day.
Well, let's let it be known that the start of Judgment Day there was nothing fair, and if they had a problem with somebody, they would jump them. But it just seems like Damian Priest's attitude has changed since he became champion, and that's something that Finn Balor was trying to point out. However, it just seems that every time Damian Priest would try to score victory, he always have an assist. And that's the biggest problem. So can we really say that Damian Priest is actual one of the best world champions? I'm sorry, but he's gonna have his hands full in SummerSlam when he takes on Gunther to defend his title.
I got one more thing. One more thing. Okay. Right. Priest is changing. We've seen him more confident and he wants to be an actual champion. He doesn't want to be like, oh, I got this because he helped me or he helped me. No, I did this on my own. Now, we see him trying to change everybody in there and not everybody's with it. Now, technically speaking, like I mentioned earlier, we never seen the Judgment Day ever, and I mean ever, go up against the Bloodline. And do you think just as a theory, what if the Judgment Day does end up becoming something good, and then maybe they will have a tag team of the Judgment Day versus the Bloodline since they're the two groups that everyone's well known in the WWE as of
Well,
right now.
I'm gonna tell you this: if Roman Reigns doesn't return to face his family to see where it goes, I could potentially see something like that for the Survivor Series. However, there's just so much brewing, and we're going to talk about them later on as we continue with our reaction. But I want you to hold that thought real quick. Moving on to the Intercontinental Championship. Listen, this is the biggest takeaway here. And the takeaway is that Braun Breaker, man, he had an opportunity and he couldn't deliver. And now he did a lot of beating on Sami Zayn, but what he wasn't prepared for is the resilience and the perseverance that Sami Zayn has. I mean, this guy went toe to toe with Gunther. What makes you think that Braun Breaker was going to easily beat Sami Zayn? I mean, that's crazy talk. All right. But it was unanimously picked that Sami Zayn was going to win. Okay. And that's all good. On the other side here, on the Money in the Bank, the women's side, yes, Tiffy, it was Tiffy time. And yes, I was in an agreement. That was a unanimous pick, Tiffany Stratton. But a lot of people was going for Chelsea Green. And I almost fell for it. The crowd was on her side. I mean, there was many times she went up the ladder, but man, did she not take that table?
Ugh, that fall that she did, I that you that was super high, and the fact that she tipped her over, and then yeah, it's two tables, but there's no telling if that was even enough cushion for that fall.
I think that if there anything in the whole entire show, the women's Money in the Bank match stole everything. I think that was top notch number one match tonight. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. So congratulations, Tiffany. However, Tiffy needs to be able to take the advice from Trish Stratus because, yes, she is the Money in the Bank winner, but her so called friend, Nia Jax, is the queen and she is the number one contender for Bailey's World Championship. And if Shania Jax win, who's going to turn who? When is Tiffy time, and when is she going to take that opportunity to become a world champion? That is a question that we're going to discuss next week with Hector and Frank on our weekly show. And especially that next week, we'll be tuning in to our fifth anniversary of our HHW Show podcast. Let's go ahead and move on to the main event. You mentioned about the Judgment Day and the Bloodline, but before we even get there, listen, I mean, how many times is Randy Orton and Kevin Owens going to fight the Bloodline? We just seen the new version of the Bloodline, the family together, and they always found a way to win.
Yep. But it's just I don't know about them though. I truly don't really know.
Well, he's saying you better acknowledge them. Solo went on at the end and said, "Acknowledge me. Do you acknowledge Solo Sokoa to be the new tribal chief?"
Not yet. And I say that because, you know, we all seen Roman grow. And the way Roman handles things is completely different from what Solo does. And and I say that back to, the what happened with Paul Heyman. You're right. The one thing about Roman was that he did things manipulative. You know what I mean? But we all saw last time Paul Heyman went through a table. That is not what a tribal chief does to his people. So you're right. If anything, Solo's going the right path that he thinks he is. He's the youngest. Obviously, the youngest ones always think they know more than the oldest.
And speaking about this guy right here, always learning from his dad. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. But anyways, listen, the Bloodline won. You're predicting that maybe if Roman Reigns don't come and everything else, like we agreed that it could be a possibility Judgment Day. However, there's just things there are friction between the group compared to the Bloodline. They're in sync. They all acknowledge Solo as the tribal chief, and they will ride or die for him.
For now. Because we've all seen that before. Even with the Usos and Roman, they were fighting with one another because they were never on the same page, but they would still do what Roman says. You're right. These guys, they're loyal right now, but there's no telling what's going to come in the future to the point where, well, maybe I'm not fit for this. Or, you know what I mean?
I don't know, but I tell you what, regardless of what happens, is going to be pretty awesome. A lot of fans still chanting Roman Reigns to come back. Okay, we still haven't heard from Paul Heyman from the the brutal attack that they did a couple of weeks ago, and like there's just so much in fact that there might be another member, another family member joining in. Will they save him for the bloodline here, or will they wait until Roman Reigns return and maybe a new group? Like this could be a civil war, or I'm gonna tell you right now, if it's not a civil war like many people want to happen, what if Roman Reigns comes back and acknowledges that, hey, you're the leader? This is the reason why I let you be. You're carrying out what I always wanted. Our family is still on top.
But family does not hurt family. If you're going to be a tribal chief, you're going to do what it takes to provide more for your family. Because Roman gave the Usos the belts. For the longest, we saw all of them have the belts, right?
It's gonna take time.
Right. It's
Remember,
going
they
to
were
take time.
already the tag team champions, but he went a step further and be like, "Why don't you become an undisputed champion?" His goal was to get all the belts, and Roman Reigns set an example by getting those two belts, and then led the Usos to get those two belts.
That is right. You did
So
do that.
a leader leads by example. The question is, can Solo do the same? Okay.
Leader that lost his way.
And last, John Cena. Now, this one touches us deeply. So, for our background, we'll tell you that we had a cousin that used to work for the WWE, and she hooked us up with tickets when they went to Atlanta, Georgia. And the fact that my son had a care package, two boxes indeed. And the first one, there was a lot of collections of John Cena. And one of it was his album, his CD album. Yeah, back then it was CDs. And I had to hear My Time Is Now every single day, probably 30 times a day. Okay. And so the CD, that portion was, there was a big ring around it. So you know which song. I'm just kidding. That didn't happen. However, and of course, my son and I used to wrestle and stuff and act like John Cena. But it was sad and emotional that we've got to see John Cena from the start of his career and now making his announcement that he will retire after WrestleMania. So, how do you feel about this? I know you went in detail off the net here, but explain to the audience what that made you feel.
My heart sank whenever he announced his retirement. To be completely real, Cena was the biggest icon in my childhood. Thanks, to my father. If anything, the first superstar that was my favorite was Cena. And then I find it so ironic that, I come visiting my dad, watching Money in the Bank with my dad just to see Cena. I'm retiring. And the things that Cena really made me really do to better my life was never giving up. Being loyal, to my friends, because loyalty, hustle, respect. Always have respect for everybody. And just following everything that Cena preached, you know, it really made me into a better man. Truly.
I think it made us everyone better when we just talked about earlier about perseverance and resilience from Sami Zayn on his match with Braun Breaker. And then you got a guy like John Cena who always talked about loyalty and respect, right? And we never quit, we never back down. And well, no matter what challenges will bring you in life, you always got to fight for what's right. And that's what John Cena was able to do, regardless of how the people reacted about him, good or bad. I mean, if you was a kid, right, then you're a Cena fan. If you was an adult and was just tired of his, you can't see me, right, and people will boo, Cena sucks. Let's go, Cena. Cena sucks. So like all that. But I will always remember, and I'm hopeful because there's a prediction out there, and let's be hopeful to see that maybe WrestleMania, while everyone's talking about probably The Rock versus Cody Rhodes or The Rock versus Roman Reigns, what if we get that one last match, the biggest rivalry of two superstars that started together at OVM to come up in the ranks of the WWE? And not only is John Cena versus Randy Orton.
You know what I would love to see? Their last match to be an I Quit match. Just like when Randy went ahead and punted his dad. You know what I mean? Like the fight between Cena and Randy for the I Quit match, You felt every hit. You felt every second of it, every minute of it. And the Randy Orton as the person, I would love Cena to win. He's my hero. But I just don't like how they did him. Think about it. He's always losing. And for him to be on WrestleMania, the best send off would be Randy Orton, who's been by his side, who started at the same time, and just they took down a whole roster. Do you remember that episode?
Absolutely.
Tag team against the whole roster, and it even didn't even phase them. They won. So
Well, there you go. Could this be a match for WrestleMania in Las Vegas? We're gonna have to, wait and see on that. But what I do like is that he will return for the Royal Rumble. So if he's gonna be at the Royal Rumble, he could be that number 30. Okay.
like no wait.
Right. And then we got another visitor here. Again, it was a family event, but I hope everyone else was doing the same thing. But a Royal Rumble means that if you do win, you get the shot at the title. So there's a lot to go on this. He will be at the Elimination Chamber. He will be on Netflix, and his send off will be at WrestleMania. And I'm hoping, I really, really do hope that it's Randy Orton. But if not, it could be it could be a star that's up and rising. It could be. So we will have to wait and see. And once again, thank you for watching the HHW Show podcast. I'm Ovi Muniz, my son Sammy and Jovi. Yes, it was one hell of an event. The Money in the Bank, top notch. It was awesome. And we'll see. This is now we're transitioning to the road of SummerSlam. So, like I always say, you gotta love some wrestling, right? Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend.